All right, welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. This is a news check in case you're just joining us. The first part, we talked about the war against corruption, and something to look forward to is that launch of the National Ethics and Anti-Corruption Policy document that is being launched tomorrow, the sessional paper number 2 of 2018, that contains quite a number of strategies on how we can win the war against corruption, who should do what, at what time, and in what way, so that we can move forward in the fight against corruption. KBC Channel 1 will be covering that function live for you tomorrow morning. Courtesy of that, we'll not be having news check, but we'll have something very interesting for you, and it is something to look forward to. Now, on the second part of the conversation, we want to just pick up from where we left and sort of move forward on other issues that are shaping the news in the country. And like I told you, I'm hosting Honorable Solomon Kinuthia, the MCA for Ndenderu Ward in Kiambu County. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa, for creating time for us.
Thank you.
All right.
For the opportunity.
Yeah. Yes. So earlier, and you were here while we were just about to wrap up our conversation, we're talking about the war against corruption. And as an MCA, and this is interesting, it's an interesting point to start. Many people never knew how powerful MCAs can actually be until we saw, the impeachment and names of big governors being in trouble for sort of corruption-related cases at the county assembly. Just talk to us about what you've learned and what you feel is the biggest role the county assemblies can play or have played in the war against graft in the country.
Thank you. To begin with, impeachment would be a tool of last resort when all others have failed. An assembly, just like parliament, is equipped with parliamentary committees which have oversight mandate on the day-to-day running of the county executive. And if they were to exercise their mandate by making sure they peruse the budgets, they oversight the implementation of the budgets, and they question any excesses, would not even need an impeachment. So it's a challenge upon the assemblies to robustly keep the executive on toes, as the saying goes, so that we ensure a balanced exercise of power on the part of the governors and their executives. So in the fight against corruption, the 47 county assemblies have a very robust role to play, to ensure that power is exercised for the benefit of the people. Yeah.
The corruption cases we've seen, and even some governors going home outside your own county. Just the other day, former Governor Ferdinand Waititu went home. Has that sent any message, about the power that the members of the county assembly have? Because before, many people never really considered that as something until we started seeing quite a number of names being issued and impeachment motions being brought forth, others going home like Ferdinand Waititu. Has that sent a strong message about the power that MCAs have at the grassroots level?
Yes, for sure, I would agree. It has sent quite a strong message, and also it has revitalized even our own platform, the County Assemblies Forum. And currently the County Assemblies Forum is very much woke, and it's intent on empowering MCAs and equipping them to better exercise their oversight and legislative role to ensure that there are no excesses. Impeachments, much as they're exciting, they should be brought on board when all else has failed. Just like in the national level, where Senate can only institute such proceedings when, or rather the National Assembly or the Senate can institute such proceedings when all the other organs are seen not to work.
All right. Now, moving on, we also talked about Chapter 6 on leadership and integrity, and the concern was this has not been fully realized. We still are facing a challenge with the implementation of Chapter 6 of the Constitution. As a leader, having looked at, the Constitution and even what is happening with the crop of leadership that we have today, what do you feel is the biggest gap, that is stopping us from really benefiting from that particular provision in the Constitution?
We passed a very liberal constitution, which is very progressive, and it's sad to note that the non-state actors, the NGOs, were very vibrant in pushing for the adoption and ratification of the new constitution since 1992. But after 2010, for some reason, I don't know whether it's state interference or there was some lethargy on the part of the activist or its lack of funding, they took a very wide step back. So realization of the Chapter 6, there is no way leadership is going to oversight itself without the involvement of the entire nation through non-state actors, other organs of government like the judiciary, and equally Parliament on its part.
What do you feel is currently happening? There's no oversight? What do you think is the case?
There is no societal pressure on the part of leadership to abide by Chapter 6. But we need to go back to the old civil society. Even the church is very quiet, incidentally. We need to see the church going back to the roots, where Archbishop Dingi Mwananzeki, Reverend Timothy Jua, they are very vocal on matters integrity. Currently, the church is even complicit. We've seen politicians, for so long as they are taking donations to church, they are not questioned on where the donations came from.
They'll be given the front seat.
Yes. And even if I went to a burial somewhere and the father had taken the pulpit and he was giving blessing to the congregation, and then a renowned politician arrived, and even the choir was told to sit down so that the politician can be allowed to address his people. So we've gotten very backward in terms of the church, the civil society. They have gone quiet. And if they were to awake and go back to their roots, what they did in the 90s and early 2000s, would have a situation whereby even us in politics would be pressurized enough to go by the dictates of what the society would want. Yeah.
We are now talking about the constitution. Right now there are talks of constitutional reforms and, having a new constitution. Where do you sit on this particular subject? Do we need a new constitution, or do we just need to implement the one that we have as it is?
In 2010, when we were going for the referendum, and even in 2005, there was consensus on either part that the document we had was not sufficient, was not perfect. Incidentally, the only difference was how do you go about collecting it. The no people, both in 05 and 2010, wanted us to torpedo the whole document. The yes people were proposing that we test run, we pilot the document, and then as we go along the way, we can panobit where we have issues and rough edges. I was part of the yes people in 2010, and in as much as we championed that document, we agreed that it was 60% okay, but in our assessment, 40% stood to be corrected after we had piloted the project. And then 10 years down the line, there are aspects that we need to address. For example, in 2010, we had a commission by Andrew Ligale on boundaries delineation. And we have protected constituencies that had not gotten the population quota as per the constitution. And we have other constituencies, for example, Ruiru, we have Kiambaa, we have Thika, that have gone over the constitutional threshold by about threefold. We are being unfair to people of Ruiru, Thika, and Kiambaa by insisting that we must not change this document, so that we unpack it and make sure that the constitutionally protected constituencies that are not hit the population quota of 130 are matched. And the ones that have gone over threefold the population quota are again delineated, and the people there are given a right of proportional representation. So proportional representation is a question that we should now advance in this issue of constitutional change, because then that would give us proper access to leadership and also proper access to resources. The other issue, of course, is Project Kenya as we know it. Since 1963, the leadership has struggled to make sure that we are one united nation. And the political architecture at the top is the cause of all these tribal strife, because the winner takes it all. And we have tribes, for example, the Agikuyu, with only other one small tribe. They are able to dominate the presidency since independence and for the foreseeable future. So we need to address that architecture so that we can accommodate more. We should have a more national outlook at the top.
All right. Just to take you back, so you agree that we need a new constitution?
Definitely.
Just to get that clear.
We need an improved version.
An improved version of a constitution.
What we have now.
All right. So going forward now to give us your proposal, you've talked about a leadership that represents the face of Kenya.
Yes.
You're against the winner takes it all, because that then would mean that certain tribes would dominate the leadership of the country for centuries.
For eternity, yes.
How do we, make this work? Because many really criticize that type of arrangement, saying that it's going to be a huge burden on the taxpayer, having every person at the top. How do we make it work so that we all reach at the center and have a compromise?
It's very unfair for certain segments of the country to be taxed and they are not represented in these organs of governance. And that's why even in recruitment for the executive, leave alone elective position, we insist on having a national outlook. Even the Judicial Service Commission also has a certain scorecard for national outlook in its judicial officers, in the rank and file of the judicial officers. So the burden that will emanate from having a more expanded executive is less. The cost-benefit analysis is less. The benefit of proportional representation and also inclusivity in the executive, the benefits are wider, because the decisions will be more informed at the top and the people will feel they are part of Project Kenya. So they work harder and they will remain very resilient and motivated, and that is good for everybody. There is no harm in having a prime minister who reports to parliament and is held accountable by parliament for decisions of the executive. And if you're going to have this position of the prime minister via proportional representation, you realize that the majority party, the one that is most popular and voted for across the entire breadth and width of the country, will have its own person who's most popular elected as the prime minister. Then the presidency will cease to be very enamoring, very alluring, and communities won't have a reason for strife, because they know the MP is able to access the prime minister in parliament. Parliamentarians are ministers, and they'll be able also to answer to the electorate, and there'll be a lot of buy-in into the decisions of the government. It's a beautiful concept. It has worked elsewhere. I don't understand why we are very apprehensive about it.
I'll come back to the minister MP issue just a bit, but still on expanding the executive just a bit. For them that feel like, and I've had this even on the public domain, critics of this arrangement say it's a plot to create positions for certain people, and impose a more heavy burden on the taxpayer. What do you say about such statements when you hear them?
They are not backed by statistical analysis, because we had Transparency International here. In one of their statistically backed research, they found that a third of the budget is lost via graft. Corruption is imposing a much more bigger burden on the taxpayer than even representation. Again, we had the Institute of Economic Affairs undertake a research on how much a normal Kenyan is paying for representation. And it was found that annually, a normal Kenyan is paying 40 shillings for representation.
40 shillings the whole year?
The whole year.
Really?
Yes, that is the Institute of Economic Affairs. So I don't know how...
In a country where we are told even before a child is born, they already have debt.
Because, again, for us to develop, we have to borrow.
Yeah.
And now the question again comes back. how effectively and efficiently is the debt applied. You know, that's what we should focus on. For example, the current model that the president is adopting, where we have a public-private partnership and pay-per-use for highways. We had that proposal for Jomo Kenyatta Westlands. And we're also going to have that for Rironi to Mau Summit. It's better because if you're not going to use that road, you're not going to pay. So if you're innovative and adopt the current trends in the world as regards funding infrastructure, then the burden will ease off. And then again, we have to root out corruption.
Okay.
Because if it's taking 30% of the budget, it's a bigger problem than even the politicians.
All right. Yes. So, you know, you seem to be of the argument that, you know, we are losing so much in corruption, so why talk about expanding the executive? It's actually not as bad as how much you're losing in corruption. That's your argument?
The talk of expanding the executive, or rather making it more inclusive, that is popular. And that is going to be subjected to the popular vote. And the Kenyans, again, are going to have to decide whether they're going to adopt those proposals. So it's not something that is being forcibly introduced. Again, there are no positions that are being created for anybody. Because after the positions are, you know, framed in the new document, they are still subject to a democratic process of an election. So everybody is free to vie for any position. In fact, even men, a very clear reading of the Constitution will tell you even a man can vie for a women position. So there is no position either for women or for men, for select personalities, because it's subject of a robust democratic process that is subject to oversight by independent observers, the judiciary, and all other organs.
All right. Let me just take you back a bit and, you know, just query you on where you think the rain started beating us. Because if you're elected in a national position, one would assume that you represent the whole nation. It doesn't matter which tribe you come from, but by virtue that you're the one who sits on that seat, then the services and everything that comes with that office ought to reach every Kenyan in every part of the country. But here we feel like I have to have somebody from my tribe in that position for me to feel like I'll get a slice of that particular cake. Don't you think we're missing the point? We're not addressing the real problem by just expanding the executive.
You know, culture is a very strong component of any organization. And, you know, Kenya initially started as a company, a limited liability company, Imperial British East Africa, that had shareholders. When the British people again made us a colony, they were the shareholders. And they forced distinct tribes to come together and form Kenya. So we've never been one. These distinct tribes, and this is a truth that nobody will ever address, they had their own structures of governance that were made obsolete by the British colonialist. So currently, the only other avenue for representation and leadership is via what again was imposed upon us by the colonialist. So in the absence of the traditional mechanism of settling on a leader, we should have a system within the country where every other person can occupy a leadership position. And if you go presidential, that is exclusive. It is going to favor people from larger tribes. Because again, to be very honest, we vote along ethnic lines.
That's the sad reality.
It's a sad reality.
Yeah.
But over time, and as our country gets younger and more enlightened, we are going to move away from that. For example, in Kiambu, we had two elected MCAs from minority tribes. We also have quite a number who have immigrated from other areas like Embu, Muranga, but they're still Kikuyus. So we are moving towards that direction where tribe won't matter. But you know, a constitution should be a consensus document how today we want to be governed. And today, tribe is a major factor to consider. So there is no harm in silently making provisions.
Considering our normal.
Yes.
This is what works for Kenya.
Yes, for now.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something you mentioned that touches on, ministers being MPs, that, for us to have, a cabinet, politicians can also be given a chance to serve in cabinet.
Yes.
We used to be there before. There were challenges that made us go into this new system to separate the so-called technocrats and politicians. Yes. Don't you think if we do not separate these two, we will have a lot of trouble? Politics may just come into play when it comes to service delivery on a national position such as a cabinet position.
We went for a presidential system in 2010, but it has not sat well with majority of Kenyans, because they feel there is a big difference between mwananchi and those in governance. Because if things are done purely the corporate way, where you have a technocrat sitting in a ministry making decisions, most of the time mwananchi is not able to buy into those decisions. And again, it's very hard to question a cabinet secretary who sits outside parliament, because mwananchi has only one avenue, either submitting petitions to parliament so that the parliamentarians can again summon the cabinet secretary, or else other than that, the only other avenue for interacting with that leadership is in the budget making process when there is public participation. But if you look at the hybrid system or the parliamentary system, your member of parliament can question a cabinet secretary or a cabinet minister any given day for so long as they are sitting in session. And again, that is done in broad. It's not done in a committee room within parliament. It's done on the floor, where you can again watch live as those issues are articulated. So, and these are questions that is going to be again subjected to popular vote. Mm-hmm. But from what the original BBI report had, majority of Kenyans were of the view that we need to go back to the old system. It used to work for us.
Do you feel, if we need if you need changes into the constitution, BBI presents the solutions that we seek as a country? Is BBI it for you?
It's a step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And we've not seen the new report, but we like the spirit of the one that was in Bomas. Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, let's talk about what is happening right now. The political temperature it used to be simmering. Right now it's actually boiling. Soon it may just start to evaporate. 2022 is around the corner, but if you look at what is happening right now, it's sort of like our leaders have shifted completely to preparations for 2022. Mwananchi is asking, who is serving us? What do you think about these early campaigns, if I may use that term, that we are witnessing right now?
They are misguided, and we need to step back and really ask ourselves whether we are doing justice to mwananchi. Mm-hmm. It's quite unfortunate that we had to lose 2 young lives in Kenu, Murang'a, just the other day in a campaign of political related violence. And I would want to caution young people to avoid being used by politicians, because 75% of the time the politician is only worried about his own interest. So we need also to exercise restraint as a youth, and the politicians also need to exercise restraint. And where all else fails, then the enforcement agencies, the police, should take the necessary action. It's not fair, and the president has been very keen on toning down the political temperatures so that we can focus on what is necessary at this point in time. And politicians should stop thinking about the next election and worry a little bit more about the next generation. It's quite unfortunate, and it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. It was a great day of shame for the entire political class, especially the ones who are engaged in that campaign activity.
All right, it's a sad incident that has drawn a lot of reactions, not just from Kenyans, but even from the political class. The loss of those 2 young lives, and even people who were injured, and property that was destroyed during that particular incident. But it relates to what we've witnessed before. Campaigns sometimes get chaotic, and the people who suffer most are the young people. As a young leader, and having been a youth, and having been even outside politics before you got into politics, I believe you are close to the political terrain, and even understanding how young people can play a role in this. What do you think is the biggest strong point that the young people have in influencing the politics of this country?
I think the youth could start by holding us to account through the constitutional channels. For example, it's sad that when we call for a political meeting, a campaign rally, will have youth in their numbers. But when you call for a public participation meeting, a town hall meeting to discuss a budget, to discuss the revenue raising measures, you won't find the young people there, because they think they don't have a stake in saying how things are run in their neighborhoods and in the country. So because they are well educated, we have a literacy level of above 80%. We are among the best in Africa. We expect to see, and Kenya again is a young nation, where 7 out of 10 are below 35. We expect to see them get more involved constructively in governance. Days are long gone when we used to have youth wings, which were occupied by hecklers and goons for hire. We should have a structured system where youth groups, student unions, mobilize themselves and pronounce themselves as regards budget making process, national economic policy and such issues, because they have a higher stake in the future of this country than any other person. If we were to get involved to the level of Tom Mboya, which he was involved in the freedom struggle, the sessional paper number 10 of 1966, if we get youths who are involved at that level, like the independence generation, we are going to see Kenya develop. And we have also to challenge the youth to have a bigger regard from themselves, a bigger self-esteem, so that when you're called to go receive 1,000 shillings to cause chaos, you just refrain from that, because you are worth more. Your life is worth much more than that. Yes. And we question government through the constitutionally established channels. We are not even going to have the unemployment levels at the current rate that we are having.
Talking about unemployment, yes, because this was my next question. What do you think are the gaps and the loopholes that politicians take advantage of to use the youth? By use, I mean, we see them being hired as goons. We see them being hired to go and disrupt functions and all that. What is it about the young people that they see as gaps, so that as a young population, they can begin to seal this loophole, so that when a politician comes, they are guarded and they cannot be convinced otherwise? We
need to push the government to invest in the economy of the future. For example, ICT. And all these youths, most of them are on smartphones, they're on the internet. And they could work part-time on the internet, so that we can reduce the rate of unemployment. If the government was to invest in reducing the cost of access to internet, we need to push it to the same levels that internet is costing in India or South Africa, so that youth can do jobs that are easily available on the internet, like academic writing, online research, outsourcing for serious organizations. Because if we were to push down the cost of doing business, we'll see more outsourcing related companies invest in this country, and they would be able to absorb the youth into those endeavors. But that is only going to happen where we have the civil society, the youths themselves, and other progressive actors in the economy and in the politics of this nation speak out and push the government to invest in areas where the youth have an edge. Even in agriculture, we need to mechanize agriculture, make it more amenable to the reducing size of arable land, and also make sure that we demystify. Agriculture currently, people think it's for people who are retiring. We need to kill that myth, so that we can generate employment for today and tomorrow. And if we are more innovative and creative, it's easy to slay the dragon of unemployment.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa, for creating time for us. Unfortunately, we cannot continue, but those are just some of the issues that, considering the time that we had, we have covered. I want you to give us your parting shot as we bring this conversation to a close.
Thank you very much. It was quite an honor for me to be in this session. I look forward to engaging on issues of national importance, especially on issues touching on youth, and I call upon the young people of this nation to refrain from being used, and also the government should start taking seriously the youth. The youth are the main agenda of this country, because we are predominantly a young nation, and if we don't plan for the youth, we are going to have a serious crisis in the days to come, because the youth also may revolt in the future and demand for what is rightfully theirs. So we need also, as governance organs, to do the needful.
Thank you so much for your time. Mheshimiwa Solomon Kinuthia, the Mayor of County Assembly for Ndenderu Ward in Kiambu County, talking to us about the state of the nation and just sharing his insights on what can work to elevate the status of the young population in the country and the role that they can play in politics. I did not know, Mheshimiwa, that we only pay 40 shillings annually for representation. I actually thought it's more expensive than that. But I will do more research on this particular matter. I'm still not convinced. All right, we now want to pave way for the Swahili version of the program. Tamrini, Nancy Okware will be taking you through that in just a bit. My name is Safina Cheng Oma, and our sign language interpreter is Lucy Mwaura, of course assisted earlier by Susan Thuku. I will be coming back for the lunchtime news. Do join me for that later.